Hello and welcome to Visiting Dugout, a Fans First Sports Network production. I am Crystal O'Keefe. Today I have Chris Brown back on to chat about the Tigers. If you're not familiar with him, Chris, then please reintroduce yourself.
Yeah, I guess I'm primarily known for the doing the Motor City Metrics podcast, which is about the Tigers and baseball at large, and then also kind of one half of the Tigers minor league report, along with my coworker, friend, buddy Rogelio Castillo. That's basically all I do,
We love both of you over here at Southside Sox.
and we love you.
Um, yeah, of course. So, first question, what's new in Detroit?
Oh, everything's bad. Um, I mean, the big news today is that the basketball team fired their coach with I believe 6 years and $65 million remaining on his contract. So there's that.
I
But
said that.
yeah, things are bad in Baseballville around here. It's I think before the season when we talked, there was kind of an overwhelming feeling of optimism surrounding this year's team, and that is
Mhm.
just completely gone. The season is going down the toilet rapidly. I think the main thing people are talking about right now is if the president and GM, I guess he's not the GM, but the president, Scott Harris, knows what he's doing, which is not great because it's less than 2 years into his tenure. But yeah, it's just it's been real rough for Tigers fans, particularly these last month or so.
Yeah, I see that. So he's looking. Tigers are fourth in the AL Central, 11 games back. Don't worry, the White Sox are like 27 games back. At least they were when
Yeah.
I wrote these notes. Um, I mean, is there any hope of bouncing back this season, or is it just kind of perpetual sell at the deadline, replace,
I,
repair?
I mean, there's still 6 weeks or whatever till the trade deadline, so anything can happen. But it's been pretty downhill. The Tigers started off 5-0, and everything was looking good. And on May 1st, they were 18-13. It was like, okay, this team can do it, and they've gone I think 16-27 since. They're 3-10 in their last 13 games. The run totals in their last 6 games are hilarious. It's 0-1-13, 1-1-1-0. Like some
Yeah.
sort of accidental binary code that got messed up. Uh, it's just been really rough, and part of it is the two players they took with number one overall picks in the last 5 years have both basically bottomed out. Spencer Torkelson is back in Toledo, not doing anything
Mhm.
particularly special there, and Casey Mize is battling every fifth day, but and he's got a fastball in the upper 90s now, but he can't get a single swing and miss. It's really hard to watch. He's just fighting for 4 innings, and yeah, it's been really a bummer all the way around this year.
Yeah, Casey Mize is the one that really stunned me the most when I was kind of pulling up some info because you and I both, I feel like, talked about it last year and then talked about it at the beginning of the season how we were, kind of excited for him. He's been consistent and, he's usually tough to battle against. So for him to just kind of drop that low, and it's mid June, that's disappointing and just kind of wild to see.
Yeah, he was coming back from he missed almost 2 full years he had Tommy John
Mhm.
surgery and back surgery, and it was like, okay,
Mhm.
we're wondering like, hey, did we ever actually see the real Casey Mize? And
Yeah.
in spring training and the beginning of this year, things looked good. He had a new fastball. It was harder, had better shape to it. But now that's like all he has. His splitter isn't working. It never really has worked at the big league level. Unfortunately, that was kind of his main secondary pitch coming out of college. His slider doesn't work. His knuckle curve doesn't work. It's yeah, he's up there basically with nothing but a fastball, and he's trying to make it work. And I give him credit for battling, but he's looking like a guy that's probably not going to get tendered a contract after this season, which is
Yeah.
quite a fall. So that's unfortunate.
Well, speaking of like contracts and what's going on, who would you consider your kind of trade bait right now? Because again, I feel like you guys are going to be a lot like the White Sox, where you're pretty open to selling. So, I
Yeah.
mean, who do you have in the block that you think you can get something of value from, someone of value from?
Well, the main trade chip that they have this year is probably Jack Flaherty, because
Mhm.
he's a guy that has been a top 5 pitcher in the National League. 6 years ago or whatever, and it's been struggling the last few years. Tigers got him this year, and he's been outstanding. I think he was leading the league in strikeouts per nine. Just pitched really well. He's only on a 1-year deal, so
Mhm.
it's going to be inexpensive for any contender to get. The only issue is then you're probably not going to get that much in return, but he could be one of the better starters available, and so you might get a premium there. After that, it's kind of just secondary pieces. Maybe Carson Kelly as a catcher for another team that needs an extra backstop. They've got some solid role players. Andy Ibanez crushes left-handed pitching. You're not going to get a huge return for that.
Mhm.
But sometimes teams like, hey, we're not that great against lefties. We got to get somebody off the bench. I'm trying to think. Like Mark Canha is a veteran outfielder / first baseman who's maybe has some value.
Yeah.
And then the big one, and the people, this is one, Tigers fans are up in arms and fighting each other constantly, is Tarek Skubal, who wasn't great
Oh,
today, but he is one of the best pitchers in baseball this year,
yeah.
and he's under contract for 2 more years. But the calculus there is that he's also a Scott Boras client, and most people
Mhm.
assume that Scott Boras just wants all his clients to get to free agency. I've been trying to hold out some hope and pushing the narrative that, after last offseason, when none of Scott Boras's clients got big contracts, maybe he'd be more willing to sign an extension. But the more the Tigers lose and the worse they look, the more it seems likely that Tarek Skubal could get moved. And he would be probably, along with Garrett Crochet,
Yeah.
2 of the bigger trade chips out there in the market.
Yeah, we've got Crochet, we have Eric Fetty that I think people are really finding interest in. He's had a phenomenal season so far too, and people are even surprisingly looking at Michael Kopech, where I'm just like, if you can fix him, like I will trade you for, peanut butter and jelly at this
Well,
point because he's very frustrating here.
that would
But
be.
yeah, I'm trying to come to terms with like losing some of these people though, because they
Yeah.
broke my heart so much, like within the last few years.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, that's what, we've talked before on various incarnations of various podcasts about how it felt like the White Sox were right there, and then it didn't quite get, and then it just slipped right out of their grasp, and now it's rebuilding again. The Tigers didn't even get to those heights. They didn't even
yeah.
come close, but it does feel like they rebuilt. They had a chance. They spent all their money on Javier Báez and Eduardo
Yeah.
Rodriguez. Rodriguez is gone. Báez is probably going to get cut at some point with 3 years and $75 million left on this deal. Uh, which is hard to believe. It's been kind of a series of disasters around here. The only thing you can kind of look at is Riley Green is continuing to be a pretty good young player, and Kerry
Mhm.
Carpenter was also a good hitter, but now he's hurt. He hurt his back from carrying the team, I think, for most of June, or most of May. So yeah, we're looking at being basement dweller buddies with the White Sox, I think.
Well, I remember, I think it was maybe two years ago, and I think I was on with you guys, and I said, I am excited to see what the Tigers
That's a
are
Freudian
going
slip.
to offer. Yeah, and I thought maybe they're going to move the needle a bit. Like they're not quite there, but maybe 2023 season they're going to be there. And my don't listen to my predictions ever. Anyone listening to this?
Well, no, I've heard a bunch of people call them the American League Pirates because it's similar. All
Yeah.
they had all these top prospects, top 30 prospects, right? It was Casey Mize, who we talked about earlier, Spencer Torkelson back in Toledo, Matt Manning also back in Toledo. He's been up and down for the last few years. Tarek Skubal's been great. Riley Green's been very good. So you got 2 out of 5, but they didn't have any of the supplementary pieces, and the ones that they did have, they traded away because they thought they were going to go for it. So they had Isaac Paredes, who has been very consistent and good down in Tampa. They traded him away for Austin Meadows, who played, I don't know, 20 games for the Tigers before
Yeah.
basically retiring from baseball with anxiety issues, which is like
Mhm.
you feel cursed at that point. Like you don't blame the guy. It's not like he came back to baseball somewhere else. He's just out. Um, so yeah, it's just been a series of mistakes and missteps, and that's why they brought in a new uh, president of baseball operations, and things haven't really changed much. It's hard to blame him for a lot of this, but at the same time, he doesn't seem to have any real answers right now. Although I guess it's kind of tough in the middle of the season to fix a team.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I've seen it here. all year and all of last year, even. So, um, on like a more positive note, who would you send to this All-Star game that's coming up soon?
Yeah, well, Scooble would seem like a lock. He, like I said, he's before today. He had a rough outing, but he's still got a 2.5 ERA on the year, and solid record and lots of strikeouts, not a lot of walks. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, probably a real contender for the Cy Young. So you would think that he would go, maybe even get a chance to start. Although it might go to like Seth Lugo or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Riley Green, I think, is deserving of an All-Star bid. It's his batting average isn't particularly high right now, but he's walking more than he used to, and he's hitting for more power than he ever has. And he's still only 23. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you don't really take age into account when you go to the All-Star game, but he's playing at an All-Star level, I would say. But beyond that, that's about it. I mean, I guess you could, Flaherty is another candidate. Last year, their All-Star was Michael Lorenzen, which is kind of a surprise. And
Mm-hmm.
then they went and traded him, uh, which is fine. The guy they got for him is playing very well in Double-A. But uh, yeah, those would be my top three candidates, I guess. Flaherty, Scooble, and Green.
That's fair. At least it's better than what is going on in the White Sox world, as our kind of, you know, corner of Twitter are all just jokingly but seriously saying, let's send Martin Maldonado. Everyone vote for Martin Maldonado every single
Yeah,
day.
it's the
That's what we're working with.
it's the with the William Hung theory, I guess, to make a reference from what 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But
Don't show our age here.
um, yeah, I don't know. Like ordinarily when teams are bad, they usually have like one or two relievers that you go, okay, he's their all-star, right? He's off to a good start, even if it's not real. He just hasn't given up a ton of runs. Tigers don't even have that really. I mean, they have Tyler Holton, who's been solid all year, but Jason Foley came to the year with triple digit sinker, looked like he was going to be kind of a top-notch closer, and now he's like throwing 94, 95 and not striking anybody out. And Alex Lang was their big strikeout guy. I think he had 20 plus saves last year. He also got sent back to Toledo, and then he got hurt. So it's just, yeah, there's not a lot of optimism along those lines. But I don't know. We'll see. We're not to the point where we're jokingly nominating Javy Báez, but maybe next year.
That would be funny, though, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, and like the White Sox have legitimate people that they could send, but
Yeah.
I think just as a whole, we're also annoyed with this organization that we're like, screw it. No, they're probably going to be gone in July anyway. So
Yeah.
why send them to represent us? And Martin will just stay there forever and ever.
They'll frame a good game in the All-Star game.
Oh, that would be so fun if he actually did that. All right, we will take a very quick break and be right back to chat about the series. I update my notes. All right, welcome back. We're going to break down the series with Tigers now. So, pitching matchup is still kind of to be determined for the White Sox, at least. I think you'll probably get Fetty and Thorpe if Drew Thorpe is still up. No idea where they're going to go in this rotation after that, but the Tigers did update theirs today. So Friday, game 1, Jack Flaherty. Game 2, Kenta Maeda. And Sunday is Reese Olson. And I'm looking, Kenta's ERA is pretty elevated. So I'm not sure how his season is actually going, but the other two are pretty consistent in, low threes. So what can you tell me about this rotation right now?
Well, yeah. So just looking at those matchups, you'd say, okay, the Tigers should take 2 out of 3, right? Well, it's baseball, of course. We know that it doesn't always work that way. But yeah, Flaherty has been dominant at times this year. I think he's working on 16 plus straight scoreless innings. He did. He was really good in Boston a couple starts ago. Had a no hitter going into the 7th, and then came out and was scoreless through 5, I think, against Texas, but came out after 60 pitches because he had his back wasn't feeling great, which is always a little bit scary because those backs, they don't heal themselves really. They kind of flare up. And then, he took like 10 days off, came back and was another 5 scoreless innings, I think, that was the game against Houston where the Tigers scored 13 runs, so they took him out after 5 just to be cautious. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he's been pitching terrifically well, and lots of sliders and knuckle curves to go along with the mid-90s fastball. Lots of strikeouts, not a lot of walks. You would think that would be a tough one for the White Sox, but you
Mhm.
never know for sure. And Kenta Maeda has been pitching every bit as bad as his ERA says. I think he's been hurt all year long. He has spent a couple times away from the team on the injury list. But yeah, his strikeout rate is down dramatically from his career norms. His walk rate is up. His home run rate is up. Like everything points to something being terribly wrong with him. But he keeps going out there, and his last outing, I think he gave up 4 runs in the first 2 innings and then battled through 5. But yeah, I mean, he would be the one that I would assume the White Sox have the best chance to get. And I think that they got to him, if I recall, the second game of the year. I think they got to him pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. I went to the first game naturally, so I didn't.
Yeah. Well, the first game I think was a 1-0 Tigers win, and the second game was like a back and forth, high scoring affair that Tigers actually pulled out. But so yeah, I mean, he hasn't been great. So that's your hope for there. And then Reese Olson. Here's another thing you could hope for is that Reese Olson has the least run support in all of baseball this year. 13 runs the Tigers have scored for him in how it's like 1.5 runs per 9 innings. For whatever reason, whenever he goes in a pitch, they just don't score. And it's kind of hilarious at this point. If you're not him, I don't know. His record might be like 1-8, or I don't even think he has a win. But he's been very good for the most part. He had a 3-start stretch where he was pretty rough, but he came back really strong the other day, again in a game that didn't win. But so I mean, he's got top-notch stuff. Just sometimes it's not quite there. So I wouldn't be shocked if he kind of shuts the White Sox down. I also wouldn't be shocked if it doesn't matter because the Tigers don't score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just looking on their probable pitchers. I was looking at those strikeout rates, and I just looked into only 36 strikeouts this year for him, where you look at Flaherty and he's got 100 on the year. So, woof.
Yeah, it's with Maeda, he's never been a hard thrower, right? He's more like 89 to 91, which is hard to survive if you don't have pinpoint command. And he normally does, and he usually has a pretty good splitter and a pretty good slider. Doesn't have those for the most part this year. So again, it's another guy who looks very beatable and looks like he's hurt and looks like he shouldn't be pitching every 5 days, but that's what the Tigers have. And one of the more confounding things this year is, and maybe this is just fans having over unrealistic expectations for the pitching development side of things, but everybody loves the Tigers pitching coach Chris Fetter and their bench pitching coach Juan Nieves, and they've got this kind of kinesiology mastermind named Robin Lund, who all about pitching mechanics, and they've fixed some guys that they get a lot of credit for helping turn Jack Flaherty around. Although obviously it's a lot on the pitcher, but there are a handful of guys that they haven't seemed to be able to do anything with, including Manning, Mize, and Maeda. So I don't know, maybe just avoid pitchers with M's in their name.
Yeah. I was looking because I had in my notes originally that you guys faced Raylo today, Ronaldo Lopez, who is my guy. I was just telling someone I was upgrading my phone today, and while we were waiting, we were talking about baseball just very casually, and I was like, I actually helped one person in their baseball, like fantasy baseball, by telling them to pick up Raylo. And they gave me the dumbest look, and I was like, just do it, just trust me on this one. They should probably send me like a gift basket at the end of the season.
I think he leads the major leagues in ERA now. I think it was 5 scoreless today. The Tigers couldn't do much against him. Yeah,
he's just on one. I adore him and I miss him so much. But like all White Sox pitching, they go on to greener pastures, and suddenly they're the most dominant pitcher in the league. Like we've seen it with Cease, obviously seeing it now with Raylo, and even Chris Sale for a bit. So
yeah, he's been doing a nice bounce back in Atlanta this year. I mean, Ronaldo Lopez, it's hard to think like that's years and years ago. He came over with Giolito in the Adam Eaton trade, right?
Yes.
And Adam Eaton is now my neighbor. He lives like 5 minutes from me. His kids go to the same elementary school as mine.
I am so
So,
sorry.
whatever. These things happen.
Oh, yeah, I was not thrilled when he came aboard, but it's whatever. He's gone now. He's not my problem.
You know,
Sorry if your
no,
neighbor
it's all
is
good.
listening to this.
I don't think he is.
Um, yeah, anyway, so getting into this, we've mentioned pitching and how maybe they could take 2 games, but what about like a biggest threat to this White Sox team, maybe outside of the pitching? I know you said Riley Green has been phenomenal lately.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he's the only guy doing much of anything in the lineup right now. It's Mark Canha is a solid veteran and he'll work some walks and stuff like that, but he's been completely average basically outside of April.
Hmm.
Colt Keith was one of their top prospects and he really struggled in April, but has been solid since May. But he's not like a threat. I wouldn't be scared of him just yet. He's still 22 years old and kind of feeling his way out. But yeah, there's not somebody in the lineup that you have to be really scared of. Every now and then, somebody will pop up like Jake Rogers, the catcher, will have a 2-homer game or hit a home run on you. And but it's a lot of just kind of singles hitters and role players. I don't know, Matt Vierling got really hot for like a 3-week stretch, and he's back now to being completely average. It's just there's not a lot like you can easily pitch around this lineup. I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the White Sox pit. I mean, some of the hitters are doing something. Andrew Vaughn and Paul DeJong have been really good. I mean, Paul's got the most runs right now on the team. But at the same time, I watched Luis Robert strike out twice last night, and he also just very recently came back from injury. So I'm kind of watching him, and it's just his timing is way off. And until he gets that fixed, I'm just going to keep watching him strike out, um, which is a shame because he is usually the big threat, at least on this team.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
just a
yeah,
sad way.
it's coming back to me now that I think that he hit 2 home runs off Kenta Maeda in that game we were talking about. So maybe
Oh,
Maeda will get him back on track.
maybe that would well, that's what the White Sox usually do for other teams is get them back on
Well,
track.
Tigers certainly got the Braves back on track this week. They went and scored 3 runs or 2 runs in 3 games and got swept. So maybe they
Yikes.
can do it for the White Sox.
Maybe that would be really nice. No offense, because I do appreciate the Tigers. Um, yeah. What are their keys to taking this? Is it just better pitching, or what do they really
I
need to do?
I think they need more production from somebody other than Riley Green. It could be
Mhm.
Winslow Perez continuing to get on base a little bit or hit. Maybe Justin Malloy is another rookie that they brought up. He's got some offensive promise, but he's also a guy that has consistently kind of swung and missed a bit too much in the zone. He's got a great eye. He's not going to chase a lot, but if pitchers just attack him,
Mhm.
they can have success. So I don't know. It's going to take some timely hits. I guess that's the case in every series, but yeah, I don't know if there's any particular uh, cure for what's going on with the Tigers right now. They would love to get Kerry Carpenter back, but there's been no updates with him and stress fracture in your back. I don't know. He could be out
Yeah.
all year. Um, yeah,
I,
I don't know. I wish I had some answers. I don't know if Javy Báez used to always play well against the White Sox, especially when the Chicago fans were booing him.
yeah.
But yeah, he's not going to be back, I don't think. And so I don't know. I'm at a loss. I think the front office is at a loss. I think AJ Hinch is at a loss. I think the players
Mhm.
don't really know what to do. So we could see some bad baseball this weekend.
Wow, same bestie. We've got the exact same situation.
Yeah.
Oh, baseball is pain.
Yes. Sorry, my dog's going. He must see a groundhog or something.
Oh, no, I can barely even hear the dog,
Okay, good.
so you're totally fine. Yeah, it seems like we've already kind of discussed your fears of nobody producing, bad pitching. Same thing I've got going on here. Um, how's your farm system? Like, is that any good right now?
Well, you know, it's kind of middling now. They graduated a couple of their top prospects, and the one Parker Meadows got a taste last year and came up this year and barely hit his. I don't even think he did hit his weight and went back to Toledo. I think he's better than he showed earlier
Mm-hmm.
this year, and I think he'll be up. It's possible that he could be back up for this series because they've been playing Akil Baddoo, and
Uh-huh.
he hasn't done much of anything, and Meadows has been playing well in Toledo, so he could be back. Colt Keith was another one of their top prospects. He's up in the big leagues now, so they lost some cachet there just by graduating players, which is kind of what you want to do, but they haven't made a huge impact yet. But yeah, their top handful of prospects are still good. Jackson Jobe is one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. He just came back after 4 or 5 weeks out with a hamstring injury. He just came back yesterday, and he looked fine. A little rusty, but he's not a guy that I expect to help the Tigers this year. He probably would. He'd probably be their 4th or 5th best starter right now, but I don't think they're going to push him like that. And then their other top prospects are all, guys they drafted last year for the most part. And Max Clark, they took 3rd overall. He's doing fine in low A. He's kind of a polarizing player because he's kind of flashy and big on Instagram and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was a lot of hype before he started producing, but he's been really solid all year. And then their second first round pick, Kevin McGonigal, has been awesome. He's like a little fire hydrant spark plug hitter. He's hitting like 340, just hits everything. So he'll probably get called up. But again, we're talking low A, so we're not going to see him till 2026 at the earliest. So, but yeah, it's kind of a middling farm system. We'll see. We're kind of flipping our minds to draft mode now because that's all we have. I was looking yesterday at the the tankathon. I'm like, oh, the Tigers have the 6th worst record right now, or they don't have the 6th worst record, but they would pick 6th
Yeah.
because unfortunately the White Sox and the A's, I believe, can't even pick in the top 10 next year. So
No, they
that
can't.
is we'll see how long this lasts. I feel like that is an extremely prohibitive draft lottery type thing that I don't know if it's going to stick, but so yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of optimism on that front. I guess the one player left in AAA that people think might help is Jace Young, the younger brother of the Rangers third baseman Josh Young. The Tigers have been
Okay.
trying
Yeah.
Jace.
Yeah.
Tigers have been trying him at third base too. It's not going well. He's a natural second baseman, and he's just heavy, like lower half. I don't know how else to describe it. Like he's just slow, thick thighs, just not a quick twitch guy. He can hit the ball very hard, and he takes his walks and stuff. But I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he can play third base, and I don't think he's going to be a plus at second base. So I don't know. It's not. You're not looking at like the next Bobby Witt or anything like that. This is a guy who may come up and be an average big leaguer.
That's kind of how I feel about Andrew Vaughn. Like if he wasn't hitting anything, I would just hate him because he's very slow. He's also kind of like what you explained,
Just
his
yeah,
thicker bottom half prohibits
yeah.
him from being very fast. And so usually in like a tense situation, they're gonna call for a pinch runner because he's just wolf. Like I didn't think that you could compare someone to Yasmani Grandal, but then I watch Andrew Vaughn run and I'm like, okay, I see that we just have your clone here. But
Yeah, they got too much cake. There, there's we put up a clip a couple years ago of Jace Young. I guess it was last year, trying to leg out a triple in High A West Michigan, and in like by the time he's rounding second, his legs, it's like his hips have come misaligned. His legs are like shaking, and he's not a big dude. It's just the way his body is shaped. But
yeah,
and I don't mean to body shame at all, right? He's a good
no,
baseball player. I am not, but yeah. So like I said, it's there's some hope there for the bat, but he's not going to be a particularly great player, right? So just waiting for the draft.
it's so sad that this is where we're at. Um, Getting away from these two very sad teams,
Mm-hmm.
how are you feeling just in general with what this season has been like? Are there any really big surprises or anything you're thinking of?
Well, yeah, I mean the big surprise for me is I mean we came into the season thinking the Tigers would be contenders this year, mostly because the AL Central was going to be a bunch of middling teams,
Yeah.
and Cleveland and particularly Cleveland, but also Kansas City have gone out and played terrific baseball in ways that I did not expect. Scoring runs, it's not Cleveland's thing, but yeah, I mean that's been a huge surprise for me. And then I guess the other surprise is how flat the standings are in the National League, I want to say that there's like 8 teams within like 4 games of each other right now. It's
Yeah.
crazy, which is kind of fun, but it's also, I think, sort of secretly what the owners and GMs, they deviously wanted something like that so they could justify not spending money and not making big trades and stuff. But it does make for more exciting games down the stretch, I guess, if you've got like 6 potential teams that can make the playoffs. But
I
yeah,
mean,
I don't know.
that'll make the playoffs more watchable too. They know they're
Yeah,
just bringing in money by putting, these popular teams out.
yeah. But yeah, beyond that, I guess the other thing is just a lot of the kind of, you don't want to say no name pitching, right? But
Mhm.
new players who are atop the pitching leaderboards, particularly in the American League. You got guys like Tanner Houck and Cutter
Yeah.
Crawford, but in like the National League, it's like Ranger Suarez and all these guys. I don't know if it's real and going to last, but it's kind of interesting to see a lot of newer names atop the leaderboards there.
Yeah. Last night I watched Jonathan Cannon pitch. I think this was his 5th start. He's kind of been up and down AAA. He's 23 years old. Like, he's a baby. And like I said, he keeps coming like up and down, but he has been really consistent. And then he got into the 9th inning. He pitched 8 2/3 innings,
Jeez.
scoreless baseball, like, really good. I mean, 4 strikeouts, but again, he shut out the Astros, which is already kind of a big deal, and was 1 out away from a complete game. And I'm like, where'd you come from, buddy? Because let's keep you here.
Yeah.
Stay here and, dump that dirt bag. Leave him in
Oh,
Charlotte somewhere.
still there. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Cannon, I recall him, I think, at Georgia in
Mhm.
college. Yeah, so I kind of lost track of him, but that's interesting to see him coming up and pitching well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tigers haven't had that. They brought up a couple of pitchers this year, but certainly haven't had someone threaten a complete game. They haven't anybody threaten a complete game as far as I can recall.
Yeah, he was very, very close to it. And
Nice.
I know that it was the best idea to pull him because he did allow 2 hits trying to get to that last out. But at the same time, I was kind of like cursing at my TV, thinking like, why? He just needed 1 more out. Why did you do that? I hate you, Pedro. But I mean, that's normal. But
Yeah,
he just looked so great. He was very dominant the entire night, and he's got a really good arsenal of pitches. So it was just kind of sad that he didn't get to finish it. But at the same time, going that long into a game is barely heard of these days.
yeah. Like I was saying, I don't think a Tigers starter has even pitched into the 9th this year. So maybe only into the 8th a handful of times. So I don't know. That's nice that they gave him a chance. You'd like to see that you could complete it, but baseball always has different ideas.
Yeah, I did. I got a funny text though after the game from my mother-in-law, because if she actually is watching the game, she'll text me after, whether it's positive or negative, and she was like, "That's what pitchers used to do back in my day. They just threw a whole game."
They just kept going. Yeah.
Yeah, and
No,
she's like,
I
"I
know.
know it's different with pitch speeds and all, but that's what they used to do."
Pitch speeds. That's cute.
Yes.
Yeah. No, the game has changed. It's different now than it was 10 years ago, than it was 20 years ago. It's going to keep getting different, but I don't know. Hopefully that our franchises can somehow figure a way to compete in the new millennium now that's 24 years old. Maybe they need AI or something. I don't know.
Something has to work at some
Yeah.
point, but who knows? Maybe my next birthday in like 10 years as
Yeah.
I head
We're
towards 50.
looking at it's been 40 years since the Tigers won the World Series, and the White Sox are going on about 20, but 20 is better than 40 in this regard.
Yeah.
In a lot of regards, I
Someone
guess. But
someone much younger than I reminded me that it'll be 20 years next year, and I'm like, "Can you just close your mouth?"
no, no, it doesn't. It feels like yesterday, but I don't know. These, you go through the season and you get to this point and you go, another season basically gone. Now what? And you try not to. I don't know. Like I'm not a huge football fan or anything like that. So I'm like, look forward to football. Basketball's over, hockey's over, basically. So I don't know.
But you get that like amnesia. You
Yep.
forget just how bad your team was the previous year. And so then the Super Bowl's over and you're like making that tweet like, here comes baseball. And
Yep.
then you're like, oh, wait, my
Yeah.
team is really bad. I'm dreading this. And then, it gets warm, spring training hits, and you're like, yeah, we're back. So it's just this like endless cycle of these teams just manipulating us over and over again.
Relating our emotions. Well, yeah, and there'll always be like 2 or 3 players who are doing really well in spring training. Like, I don't know, it could be a breakout. And then they go like, oh, no, that was spring training.
Me every year with Dylan Cease until like 2022.
Yeah. Well, it came. You were just out of your time.
I know. All right. Well, that's what I've got for you. Thank you so much for coming on again. It's always
Absolutely.
appreciated. Best of luck in this series. Somebody's going to have to win at least a game.
You too. Yeah, let's just hope that there's not like a series of bench clearing brawls and all our favorite players get hurt.
Oh my gosh. Don't even put that into the like atmosphere. Although that'll probably happen now that you say it. All right. Well,
All right.
thank you again. Please
Thank you.
remind people where they can find you.
Yep. I'm at Chris Brown 0914 on Twitter or Tigers ML Report on Twitter. And then there's the Motor City Metrics podcast and the Tigers Minor League Report podcast. And generally just around.
Yeah. Give all of those accounts a follow like I do. It's all great. All right. Well, great chatting with you. I will
You
talk to
too.
you later.
Thanks again, Crystal.
Bye.